you want to handle this introduction?
Yeah. If you were to try and give rock and roll another name, you might call it Chuck Berry, right? In the 1950s, a whole generation worshipped his music, and when you see him perform today, past and present all come together, and the message is, hail, hail, rock and roll, right on.
Here he is, Chuck Berry!
What is up, everybody? My name is Marco Restrepo, and this is Marco's Music Show. And of course, I'm Marco. I think I just said that. This is Marco's Music Show. I'm Marco, and I do the research, so you don't have to. But today, the episode topic is going to be a series that I'm starting that sort of goes deep into the history or the roots of rock and roll, a music that I love a lot and that I hold near and dear to my heart. We all know the history of rock and roll is usually filled with people like Elvis, Buddy Holly, the Beatles, Hendrix, the typical characters. But I want to address some of the people who were pivotal in the formation of the genre as we know it today. And these people are the Black Fathers of rock. Or the fathers of black rock. No, the Black Fathers of rock. Whether these artists in their time were labeled as R&B, blues, or gospel, the ear doesn't deceive, and it's pretty clear that their records contain the DNA of what we today call modern rock. But it's damn near really, I thought about doing like a ranking list, but it's nearly impossible to rank these artists because they're all so important in their own certain kind of way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give you some names, and today the guy that we're gonna start with is one that many people would probably call the father of rock easily, without much debate at all. It's either him or Elvis, and this guy, well, to most people, obviously, we're gonna dig into this and figure out if that's fact or fiction. The fact that it's Elvis. But at any rate, today we will cover Chuck Berry. Born in October of 1926, October 18th, 1926, and passed away March 18th, 2017. Lived a pretty long life. And a person that is worth mentioning along with Chuck Berry is Johnny Johnson. One of the people who was pivotal in getting him involved in rock music. So, maybe we'll cover him sometime down the road, but, at least you can see a picture of him. And he's a part of this story, so you're going to learn that. So, Chuck Berry. This St. Louis-born musician is considered by many the father of rock and roll. Chuck Berry was able to synthesize many genres of music at the time that were popular at the time. So things like blues, R&B, country, and in turn create his own brand of guitar music that would go on to be extremely influential to all that would go on to populate this genre that we currently call rock music. With songs like Maybelline, which came out in 1955.
Oh, Maybelline, can't you be true? Oh, Maybelline, why can't you be true?
Which was an interpretation of the country standard Ida Red.
Ida Red, I'm plumb full of Ida Red.
And it actually went on to sell 1 million copies itself. And with hits like Rock and Roll Music, Johnny B. Good, Roll Over Beethoven, a lot of which became rock and roll standards and covered by several bands, he perfected several elements that would go on to be pervasive in rock, such as the guitar solo, lyrics about youth and culture and, just situations, and whether it be a cop chase or whatever, just a rebel lifestyle, as well as the high energy performances, which included what would become known as his signature duck walk, where he would sort of, do this duck kind of walk across stage. It was aptly titled. While Berry didn't release his first record until 1955, after Elvis Presley had already begun recording a handful of rockabilly records with Chess, rockabilly being, sort of a harder edge country, I would say. So a lot of people might, call that proto rock as well. But he had been pioneering this style from his teen years. So before that, obviously, with the help of his friend Ira Harris, and from listening to the records of T-Bone Walker, and Carl Hogan. But it was in 1953 that he was hired on by pianist Johnny Johnson, who I mentioned earlier, and his jazz trio, when their sax player had an untimely stroke, an unfortunate stroke. The Johnson trio had been playing the instrumental version of Ida Red for years prior to Barry even joining. So they already had this feel and this tempo going with this song. But it was with Muddy Waters, another legend who we'll get to in the series, and his suggestion of contacting Chess Records that led Chuck to write the lyrics that made the version famous. Apparently, the story goes, he had brought Ida Red, renamed Ida Ray, to Leonard Chess, along with an original blues number that he had probably thought was going to hit, harder than the country song, or that Chess would like that one more. But he was surprised when Chess preferred the country-inspired record. He thought that the novelty of a black man singing a hick record might be a hit, and encouraged Barry to write down lyrics that would appeal more to the youth, which led to him writing the story that he eventually wrote. Curiosity, this is a quote from Chuck Berry. He said, "Curiosity provoked me to lay a lot of our country stuff on our predominantly black audience, and some of our black audience began whispering, 'Who is that black hillbilly at the Cosmo?' After they laughed at me a few times, they began requesting the hillbilly stuff, and I enjoyed dancing to it." He is described as singing like Nat King Cole over Muddy Waters type music, I guess, and is credited for exposing this blend of black music to the affluent white audiences. So that man sold out. No, just playing. He was able to, every so often you have these people who are able to take the things that are popular and sort of blend them together to get a feel that is completely unique. And since he's blending genres that every race listened to, it immediately caught their ears. And while it was different and revolutionary, it was also familiar enough to not give them any kind of cognitive dissonance. So we got to credit Chuck Berry for being able to see the connection between all these different musics, which I think is a Libra thing. I'm a Libra too. I think he was October 20th. I'm 22nd. So not that I'm anything like Chuck Berry. I'm not a legend or a pioneer. But just in terms of some of the great things that people have said about Chuck Berry, critic John Perilous has stated that Berry invented rock as a music of teenage wishes fulfilled and good times, even with cops in pursuit. His swagger, his focus on guitar licks, and his storytelling laid the bedrock for what modern rock would become, or just rock would become. John Lennon of Beatles fame said, "If you tried to give rock and roll another name, you might call it Chuck Berry." Ooh, that's a great quote. Ted Nugent said, "If you don't know every Chuck Berry lick, you can't play rock guitar." Hey man, that's coming from a legend, but that's a little harsh, man. I'm sure not everybody knows every Chuck Berry lick, but maybe I should learn something. Bob Dylan called Berry the Shakespeare of rock. Bruce Springsteen once tweeted, probably around his death, that Chuck Berry was rock's greatest practitioner, guitarist, and the greatest pure rock and roll writer who ever lived. High praise. Elvis, Buddy Holly, Carl Perkins, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Beach Boys, and Hendrix, Jimi Hendrix that is, are just a few of the rock and roll superstars that have covered his tunes, covered this pioneer's tunes. Sadly, but he was old. Chuck Berry passed away in 2017 when he was found unresponsive in his Missouri home. But he had been touring all the way up until 2014, keeping the music alive in his heart and for all the fans and the legends who are also fans of his. who enjoyed his music. So that concludes this first episode, and you should go ahead and check out some Chuck Berry music. Find out what all the hype is about. My favorite Chuck Berry song is probably it's like, honestly, I like a lot of the Beatles covers of Chuck Berry songs just as much, if not more, than his. But I think his version of Johnny Be Good is probably, to me, like his signature song, and I don't think it gets any better than that, just for music in general. So this proto-rock guy, this guitar god, is probably one of the bigger guys, so that's why he's number one. And that's going to be it for Marco's Music Show today, and I hope you learned something. You can follow me on social media and do all that cool stuff. I do music as well, so it always helps. You can donate there. There's always a Cash App, but it helps me even more if you go and stream my music. Just go stream that thing 1,000,000 times, and let's keep it going. So I love you. Good night, good day, good morning, good afternoon, good week, good year, good month.